Welcome back to another combat critique. Today, I figured we would take a little bit of a journey down memory lane back to episode 5. For obvious reasons, we have to mute the volume, for obvious copyright reasons. And it's not necessarily about the dialogue or the context. It's about looking at a fight, looking at, what's happening, who's doing what, and, just kind of analyzing it from there. I'm not a master of combat by any means. I have a passion for this, and I figured I could offer my 2 cents and maybe even think about some of these fights in a different way. So without further ado, let's get into the episode 5, Luke v. Vader, Bespin Duel. For obvious story setting reasons, we have Luke coming up the shaft, for story reasons. Also, the quality might help in terms of copyright. The sound is the big one on YouTube. That is thank Metallica for that. But sound is pretty much the big one. This just sets the scene, and if you actually watch it without audio, you can see that Star Wars is very much an opera. It is very much an opera in the way that you approach the story and approach some of these scenes. So this does set up. Vader does have the high ground. He has learned from Obi-Wan, which, oh god, that the prequels is amazing. Luke ready to step up to the challenge. He has no idea. Luke has no idea that this he knows Vader's a problem, right? He knows Vader is strong. I would argue he doesn't know why Vader's considered a Jedi killer. Vader is savage. So he's going into a pretty... I actually have issues with this, actually. He's actually going into a pretty good stance. So when I hold my longsword, I actually point up a little more, which is a problem because they can just duck down under me. He's actually pointing it towards Vader's face, which is very, very good sword etiquette. You want to point the sharp thing at your opponent, right? You want to point the pointy stick at your opponent to provoke a response from them. Vader opens up. This is him entreating the duel, I would argue. So notice that he not only has a very close guard, but he's also, I'm sure in combat you've seen where players will cross swords like this as kind of a like, hey, we're good to go, and that kind of thing. They'll flick it at each other. This is very much a, cool, I guess we're going. Luke, no idea what to expect. And so the opening gambit is going to be, he swings very, very wide here. Right, he's here. Him having his, I would argue, True Edge versus False Edge gets weird with lightsabers because omnidirectional. But if this was, this was SCA, say we had two longswords, right? I would argue that their true edges would be meeting. And so Luke's first encounter, his first gambit, is going to be to not even bat it out of the way. So we were actually doing Capo Ferro this week at SCA. For those of you, yes, I do partake in SCA. I am up in the Arnhold in Artemisia, so I'm Idaho based. So if you know where that is, hi. I plan to be going to events if people want to fight and do things. He doesn't even bother to bat his sword away, because from a Capo Ferro play, there's actually a play where you'll cavazione. So cavazione is kind of like you do a little U kind of thing, right? So you see this a lot in Rapier, right? You have two blades pointed at each other, you'll go whoop, and then you're suddenly outside of the guard. So it was you cavazione, but it's a feint. You cavazione back, bat the sword, and with the momentum using the bat sword, you go right up into their face. I actually spit my water out. I'm like, that is a dirty play by Capo Ferro. It was amazing. But Vader's very solid. Luke is actually going for a very interesting play here because he doesn't even accept the bind. He doesn't accept it. He could realize that Vader's strong in the bind. He could, understand that Vader is going to be just too stout. Doing this, sure, Vader shifts his stance a little bit. What stops Vader from going right into Luke's face right now, right? What stops any of this? Luke is swinging very, very wide, as you can see, to which Vader, he kind of swaps over almost from in Rapier term. Those that know Rapier, I don't remember the Italian to us, but 2 to a 4. Those that know those that do Rapier know exactly what I'm talking about. They turns his wrist from the right, nails down, to the left, nails up. So I mean, he kind of does something similar to that and to block that attack, but it comes across as Luke does a very, very big arc. He does a very big arc to avoid the blade to try and get Vader on this. I would argue this is a very interesting move. it definitely, I would say, shows Luke's inexperience, and it's a gambit of a risky move because Vader could have absolutely just capitalized on it. His stance is also very wide here now. And then they reset. Vader being very close. Luke is having to expend much more energy. Goes with a nice overhead strike. Vader keeps it high. That's about the right height. Because I would argue, we'll be lower. But, I mean, if it's up high, so where does, Luke's blade go? And this actually goes into someone at SCA we were talking about before practice the other night. And we were talking about kind of the ideology and considerations for Star Wars and how the lightsabers kind of stick a little bit, right? Which is a consideration there, as lightsabers will kind of stick once they meet with each other. And, Luke is going high and trying to bring it down on Vader. Vader just raises his hand up, so this plane of quote-unquote steel, this saber is able to intersect with it. What does Luke do at this point? He either tries to overpower the bind. Vader has a right angle here, right? What are our strongest angles? Right angles, right? 90 degrees. So he's not going to be able to break this. So what is he going to do? Is he going to move down here? Is he going to try to go up there? Vader can just simply push forward and expel him. He can push down. Like, there's a number of things Vader can do. I would argue Vader controls this right here. Right? Do you see how just merely moving his arm? Let's watch that again, right? So we're here. We're at our second advance. Look at how little force he has to do. That pushed Luke over. He didn't have to do anything. Luke got toppled from his current stance to what Vader just had to just push. He's also using one hand, yes. Vader controls this situation. Notice that Luke's already, not necessarily panting, but you can see that he's having to exert himself. He is keeping very much, I would argue, in his window. He's infighting, ? He's trying, good shuffle forward, actually. Mark Hamill actually doing this very, very well. Actually, very good etiquette by Vader here. So if we go back a few frames, look where it's pointed. It's pointed at center of mass. Luke is a little high, which is interesting. Because this shows Vader's mastery. This shows his confidence as well. Luke is a little high, I would argue, which, once again, is an issue I run into with SCA because I don't want to hit people in the face, especially if they're not armored, which I have to break that now. That's actually a fairly common thing in longsword, actually, is it not? So if you go from, not necessarily in this way, no, actually pretty much in this way, you'll have your corner, like, your left corner and your right corner, and you kind of just rotate it around your head like that. So I'd argue this is a very common longsword. I think it's a little low for what you're doing because you're going to kind of want to aim for, his head on each side. But very interesting move. Catches him down here. Luke is a little off balance here. I would argue he's overstepped a little bit. All his weight is going to be on his front foot. So if he has to bounce off, I think he's in a very disadvantageous position. Where Vader is... Are they in or out of measure? They're in measure. Because all Vader has to do is tilt his hands and wrists a certain way, and then he can just go up, right? Strong edges down, but Vader could expel him upwards, and I think that's actually what does happen next. But Luke is fully committed to this action. Vader is not committed to this action, and they are within measure. So once again, Vader could kill shot this. Okay, so never mind. He actually goes around, and he forces Luke. But look what position Luke's in at this point, right? From a simple, we're going to exchange here, pretty even footing, right? Vader catches him down here. I would argue this is very rapier. And then he comes over across the top. Luke has to answer this. He doesn't have any lines of defense on this, right? He is in the path of the blade. He doesn't have the blade engaged. Well, he now has the blade engaged. But when we're talking about lines of defense, right? So if I were to pass, say my opponent's Vader here, right? And I'm here, right? If I pass forward to the right and enter and thrust in, right, while blocking my opponent's blade, one, I'm off center from their blade. Two, I'm coming in from a different angle as well as tangling up their blade. And there's always a third one that I forget. But you see how there's lines of defense there? You see how I can come into measure more safely than if I just walked into measure and walked into their blade, right? Walking myself in on the point of their sword. Yeah, so pass through while thrusting, and you take care of their sword because you'll have your true edge blocking them. And right, okay, well, what do they got to do? They either have to disengage, they have to get out of measure, or they have to kind of struggle with you. At least as far as what I have experienced. He does still have an overextended stance. So yes, absolutely. So what is he going to do in this case, right? all his weight is here. He's starting to shift back, but I would argue he is in a very disadvantageous, position. He just doesn't have that ability to do many options in this state, especially with Vader bearing down on top of him. I do this way more than I want to. I spin a lot more than I want to. It's a good expel though, I will say. It's an interesting expel. Yeah, it does provoke Vader to kind of make a response, but you know, we're once again out of crossing. Luke is still overextending. Vader is still very, very close. He's able to parry that, actually. Meets him again. Gonna have a crossing that was what corners were those? So we're here. 1, 2, 3. I think it was 1, 2, 3, and then it's the strike. Yeah, then it's the strike there. Which, you know, he has to recover. You little shit. Get over here. Yeah, he either has to press it or fall back. Exactly. Luke, he is overextended at this point, and that is a very nice parry there. He is in full control of this situation. Vader could have won 3 times over at this point, in my opinion. He controls this fight. Point of Vader has a trained duelist. Luke, this point, spent a weekend boxing. No, exactly. No, like, you are absolutely right on that one, Falcon. There is... This at least illustrates because I've heard people say, oh no, it was a close fight, or you know, it was a very even fight. It is not an even fight by any means, any stretch of the imagination. This also showcases the overconfidence of Luke at this point, and 2, the sheer power up he got in his training arc between 5 and 6. Like to duel Vader on an even footing in 6. Oh my god. No, Vader's toying around 100%. Can we see him switch to a two-handed? Did he, though? That's a very interesting thing to point out, if so. Yeah, so he beats it down. That's a parry. He's still one-handed. He's still at a 90 degree here. So there's a lot of power behind that swing. He comes down. No, he's still one-handed. I don't remember the time gap between 5 and 6. I actually don't remember it. I love this part because seeing the prequels, this is such an Anakin thing to do. Like, he's looking at this like, oh yeah, you're my son, all right. Like, this is such an Anakin thing to do. And it's just it's perfect. I love it. It's so naturally he's going to go, he hears them kicking around the pipes up there. Most impressive. Oh, it's perfect. That is some good prequel memes. This as well, very, very much, which allows Luke time to recover using his environment to his advantage. Luke is able to swing his body into it. Vader's still one-handed. I would argue that's a pretty even crossing, I would think. It's middle, a little high for Vader, but Vader also has a longer saber. No, I'd say Vader still wins this crossing, actually. That's his true edge bearing down on Vader's true edge. Vader's just going to be able to whip it back over. Oh, he disengages. Okay. I haven't seen this fight in months. Vader controls this. Luke is way overexposed. His arms are a kill shot. If I'm fighting rapier, right? Because I actually use longsword and rapier. I'm the weird person that actually brings a longsword into rapier. The rapier is just gonna take my arm right there. Like there's he's just gonna take my arm. Luke is trying to fight that bind. Vader comes in. Some quick cuts. Luke repositions. But he is swinging way too wide here. Look at how close Vader is. How he's fighting in that proverbial window. Look how close he is, right? Versus Luke, who's having to flail outside of the box. He does press the advantage, though. And I think this is Vader. Just, I can't necessarily F around at this point. Like, I mean, he's still toying around, don't get me wrong. And that's actually why he doesn't come up. He's not going to fight that high ground. No, 100% no. But him toying around with Luke, I would argue at that point, you know, Luke pushed him over the edge, and I would argue he's kicking himself for that. Advantage of a longer weapon. It opens like a broadsword against a rapier here. I always forget that It's just some of the shots look weird. Very efficient in his movements. Oh, 100%. Vader has conservation of movement, something Luke does not, which is just going to tire him out less in the long run. I mean, if you have to make 3 movements to get the same effect that 2 movements does, I mean, you have another movement of effort as well as tempo. So they start out a measure here, and this is, see, this is where he starts getting a second hand into things, which he's going to have a lot more power behind too. Luke's not quite sure how to close measure. He's not quite sure how to close that gap, which Vader at this point is able to. Hey, guess what? You're not the only one with the Force. Luke has his back turned. Vader's going to try to come into measure. They end up meeting in the center. Vader has control of that crossing, I think. Yeah, so they come back. Luke and Vader meet. Vader with a smaller blade here with 2 arms would beat this. Luke sees this, tries to go under. Vader comes back. They meet. Vader comes over, being really aggressive at this point. Luke actually winds and disengages, which is very interesting. And they come back to center, which Vader has control of the situation. It was very, very good. Like, they had a good exchange there. However, Vader still controls the situation. This is not a contest at this point. And Vader can just, he can just toy around with him at this point. There's not really... There's no contest here. Luke's gotten in some pretty good shots, though. He's gotten in some pretty good shots. This I feel was pretty unexpected of him. Which, damn it, now I gotta go track him down again. Gotta go chase him down. Take advantage of your environment to distract and weaken your opponent. Be able not to take it. Oh, 100%. I mean, an SCA, right? Like, technically, there's nothing against, like, rotating to your opponents, like, looking at, like, the sun. I don't do it. In fact, I will actually, in the fights that I do, I will actually rotate my opponent away from the sun because I don't want them looking into the sun. I think it's kind of a gentlemanly thing as well, right? A sportsman-like thing. You don't want your opponent looking into the sun. I wouldn't do that. Like, if I were to go to Penzig or something, or I were to go to any of the other SCA events, right? Like, I'm not going to do good. I'm not going to try to take cheap shots because I force someone to look into the sun. I don't know. It just doesn't seem becoming of me. All warfare is based in deception. Vader's only using this basis nearly every fight he has. Oh, absolutely. 100%. Which is the fact. Point in case. He baits him in. He tries to swipe. Very, very close. He is getting a little aggressive at this point, though. You can see a change in form. He is now at 2 hands, and he's actually pushing the attack. This is what killed a lot of Jedi. Because Luke, it's all Luke is gonna have to muster to stave off this assault. This is 3 in a row. We're going 4. Actually, very reminiscent, if you will, of the Death Star. Now I'm thinking about this from 6, right? Look at this progression, right? We got 1 hit, 2 hit, 3 hit, 4 hit, push him away, another hit. But Luke kind of can dodge around here. Isn't that reminiscent of episode 6? When Luke faces down Vader in the final moments of their duel? Is it not? He is swinging pretty wild, though. Like, that is kind of hard to block, especially for someone like Luke. Yes, he has blade advantage, right? It's all he can take. He is losing ground. Yes, he can block these hits. He is staving off some of these hits, right? Like, he's staving that off. Tries to gain, but it gets pushed back. He is getting pushed back at every turn. He just pushed him to the ground at that point. He actually just shoved him to the ground. Good etiquette, pointed right at his opponent. Luke's able to bat it away. He's swinging very well. You can tell he's very, very tired. Mark Hamill portrays this very well, actually. He's able to deflect it. Vader still playing very, very close. Vader hits the side. I think that's most likely to prevent Luke from going over this side. Swings back this way while Luke swings up. Luke dodges. Gets a cheeky hit off on him. He's really pissed. Completely just cuts through any cover. This is where things kind of fall apart. So, wrong way. Cuts down the cover. You have to fight me. You have to answer this, or else you'll fall off the edge. Luke overextends. Vader winds him. Expels his blade. And what was that last part? It goes so fast. Catches, winds, comes almost Cavazziones down, and then gets his arm for the win. Tired and scares, wide swings, try and keep opponent away. Right, yeah. I mean, like, big, bad Imperial that he met in 1 that he saw kill Obi-Wan, right? Gonna definitely be a little bit of a traumatic experience with or without the reveal, which if you haven't seen, for the people that haven't seen Star Wars in 2023, go watch the movie. Like, just watch it. It's really good. Use fear very effectively as a weapon. Viagra messes the opponent. Vader never truly loses the advantage because of it. No, and he can use that aggression because he is that strong. Vader can keep up that assault. And I mean, I've done similar things too. When we were back here, right? The rest of this is just commentary, so I'm not really going to bother with it. But when we go back in here, I actually won when I was in another group, not SCA, which I'm no longer in anymore for valid reasons. This right here, how he's doing the same strike over and over, I've actually used that. I've used that to cheese a tournament. The final round was against somebody that wasn't necessarily the strongest fighter. And so if we have your 4 corners, right, we have your 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? I came at him and I struck 2, 2, 2, and so he's thinking this next strike is going to come from 2, but I go 2, 2, 2, 1, and I got it for game. You can train your opponent. In this case, it can 1, train Luke, 2, it can tire him out. There's a couple things at play here. He is swinging wildly. Luke can't answer this, and if anything, it's actually funneling Luke into this. Notice some of his swings aren't really even hitting Luke, right? Right here, he's gonna expel him there. Luke's on this side. Vader's just gonna push him down. He is funneling him over to the end over here. It is a very the swings have purpose here, especially in such a small area. In fact, I'm probably gonna ask SCA about this. Actually, I got a couple things I want to ask them about for melees. But yeah, this is the finale. Like, Luke's cornered. He got funneled. Vader's 2-3 steps ahead of him, and he has the skill and tenacity to back that up. But you know, it is a very good fight for any that think that this was an even fight. Personally, I regret to inform you this is not an even fight in any capacity. This is, in fact, an absolute wash. Luke is able to get in a few lucky hits from things like Luke's stance, his unfamiliarity with lightsaber combat, and this is all good storytelling. I think that the choreography here was amazing. I actually really like it. This isn't talking crap about the movie. I like this. This is just kind of looking at the fight from somebody that kind of does adjacent things. It is a very interesting fight, and if you haven't, I do absolutely recommend that you go check out this movie. Definitely go check out Star Wars in general. It's one of my favorite series. One saw a lot of hate, but as I grow up, Phantom Menace is actually one of my favorite movies now. Very, very political in terms of Star Wars, but oh my god, I love it. It's so much better as an adult. However, let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if I'm on point. Let me know if I'm not on point. Let me know if there's something that I missed. Let me know if you found this enlightening in any way, shape, or form. If you are an SCA, hi, I see you. Nice to meet you. I'm up in Idaho, in Artemisia, in Barony of Arnhold. I love it here. It's great. But alas, let me know in the comment section. I will see you all in the next